Okay, guys, this is not working out today. That was North Livingston telling me that they have a drop-off box. So, if you needed to know that, they have a 24/7 drop-off box. Let me get this set up again. I left off mid-sentence because it just, shut off when the phone rang. So Miss Rochenbaugh had her hand over her mouth and her eyes on a chair that got knocked over when everyone stampeded over to Evan. When she sees me looking at her, she quickly stands up straight, lowering her head. "I'm glad no ambulance was needed," she says loud enough to quiet everyone else down. "But it will take us all a while to process this. Mr. Hurd, will you help make sure that everyone's able to connect with their ride this afternoon?" He nods and picks up his winter coat from where it slung over his chair. "Of course." "Thank you," Miss Rochambeau turns to me. "We have to get going." Silently, I collect my things and follow Miss Rochambeau through the halls and out to the parking lot. "Everyone's okay. We're going to be on time to pick up Bryce and Aurora. It's all going to be okay." Still, I can't get the sound of our car window shattering that night out of my head. I don't tell my mom about the lockdown when I bring along Bryce and Aurora to pick up Hector at the pizza pit. He's in the middle of yet another game of peekaboo with Connor and one of the customers. I guess my mom got some automated message on her cell phone later, though, because she calls Frank's track phone from the restaurant and asks to put me on the line. "Why didn't you tell me what happened?" she snaps. Frank is glaring at me like he's going to grab the phone back any second. "I didn't want to bother you." I turn around so I don't have to stare at Frank while I talk. Aurora and Bryce are screaming about lightsabers in the bedroom, and Hector is flinging Cheerios out of his tray. "You could have gotten killed!" my mom yells. Where could she be standing in the restaurant and be able to yell like this? Is she in the walk-in fridge? I wasn't even in the parking lot, I say. I didn't even see the person who had the gun. What'd they say on the message? Do they know who it was? I peer around Lenny's nice curtains to look out the window. They didn't say anything on that stupid message except that there had been shots fired in the parking lot and that no one was hurt and that the police were conducting a full investigation, because that takes care of everything, doesn't it? The icicles hanging off the neighbor's roof have gotten even bigger in the last few days. She doesn't need a motion sensor light for safety. She's got daggers ready to cut down anyone who dares to come too close. My mom is still talking, but I hear a sharp "time's up" from behind me. I turn to see Frank still glowering at me and now tapping his wrist. "Mom, I gotta go." I hang up and hand the phone back to him. "Thanks for letting me use it." "So, what's all this about a gun?" He says it so slowly that it's like he's narrating the documentary about Civil War that Miss Rochambeau had us watch. "There were gunshots heard in the school parking lot after school today." "You wait," Frank says, just as slow. I can almost hear the documentary's mournful violin background music start up. He leans forward. "They're all going to get their panties in a bunch and start blaming guns like they're the devil incarnate, just like they did at those public hearings a year ago. They'll be knocking down our door trying to take ours away before you know it." He sinks back down into his recliner and keeps glaring at me like I'm the one showing up to steal his old .22 rifle. They don't know anything about guns, but they sure like to act like they do. Like they know everything about everything. Frank pulls out a new strand of cinnamon floss and yanks it free. They think we're too stupid to take care of ourselves. He settles back in to floss his teeth and watch another history documentary. "Just try to come and get it," he mumbles to no one in particular. "Just try." That doesn't make me feel any better. Chapter 16. On my way to the bus stop the next morning, I see Silas coming out of his trailer. "Hey," I call as he comes down the steps. He doesn't answer. He just climbs over the mountain of snow left by the snowplow. When he hits the road, he keeps his head down, his camo trucker hat pulled way further down than normal. "Silas," I ask, "are you okay?" No answer. It's like he's switched into mute mode already. He walks straight past me like he doesn't even see me. Fuchsia doesn't have a mute mode. She appears next to my locker before I've even gotten to the second number on my locker combination. She says, leaning against the locker. She sighs. She rolls her eyes. I take off my jacket. "Did you hear what happened after school yesterday?" She sighs again. I glare into my locker, but the words I'm supposed to say slip out anyway. "What's wrong?" I had the worst asthma attack last night. And I was a couple hundred feet away from a shooter. But does she care about that? I start shoving my jacket into my locker. She sighs a third time. I keep trying to squish my jacket in. Are you okay? I ask. I almost had to go to the emergency room. It was horrible. Fuchsia stares up at the ceiling. I can still feel it in my chest. It's like it's ready to tighten up any second to stop me from breathing. Why are you even at school then? She glares at me. I'm on my way to the nurse to make sure she has my inhaler like I'm supposed to. And what's wrong with you? I shake my head. Maybe the inhaler will help, I mutter, because you need loads of help. Fuchsia snorts as she pushes herself back up. Yeah, right. She starts heading for the nurse. Thanks for the support, she calls. When I was 5, we rented a room in a house with chickens in the backyard. And entering homeroom is like walking through the flock of chickens as they pecked all over the place to get every possible bit of corn. Except instead of corn, it's any bit of detail or rumor or possibility of what might have happened yesterday afternoon in the parking lot. Mr. Bonetop is nowhere to be seen. Brendan Farley is pacing around in the front of the room. It was 3 separate shots, and one of those bullets went right by my head. I swear I heard it zing past me. Where were they coming from? Matt is leaning up against the whiteboard. They didn't say on the news report last night. Did you see the gun? Brendan doesn't stop pacing. No, but there were plenty of places someone could have been hiding in the parking lot. Who else was there? Calvin Ubator asked. There was a car whose glass got shot out, but I don't know whose it was. It drove away as soon as it happened, and I don't blame them. Brendan stops his pace. You know who I think was the shooter? Calvin looks up. Who? I try to take my way to a seat in the back. Make my way. Brendan's voice is loud enough for the whole homeroom to hear. Silas Fletcher. I freeze. I mean, he never talks, right? Brendan continues. He could totally be one of those mass murders that you hear about when they interview the neighbors and they're like, oh, he was always quiet. Never thought he'd do something like this. So being quiet is suddenly the same as being a school shooter? And Brennan says it's just a couple weeks ago that he got in trouble for having a gun in the parking lot. And right in that very same corner of the parking lot, I mean, it's obvious. Because he was going hunting for bobcats, where you're supposed to be quiet. Calvin is on his feet. You know, he's always been weird. I don't trust him at all. Matt is leaning against the whiteboard silent. At least he's not jumping on board like Calvin is. But then he slowly nods his head. I can totally see it, turning on someone out of the blue like that. What is wrong with these people? Doesn't Brennan remember that it was right after he teased Silas for crying in the 5th grade that Silas stopped talking? I was there, and it was obvious. Doesn't he get it that if someone lines up people to place bets on your time to cry, you might decide to zip your real self up and not come out again? And just because he yanked that zipper up doesn't mean that 3 years later he's going to turn around and start shooting at people. Even if they're the people who bullied him before, right? I mean, he was all weird and mute this morning, but that doesn't mean anything, right? All right, ladies and gentlemen, have a seat. I turn to see Mr. Bonetoff in the doorway. We have something we need to talk about. I hustle to a seat in the back and keep my head down. If Mr. Bonetoff is about to say that Silas Fletcher was the shooter yesterday, I don't want to see him do it. Maybe I can block my ears and pretend nothing happened at all. You may or may not be aware of the events that occurred in the parking lot yesterday afternoon, begins Mr. Bonetoff, who then proceeds to tell us even less than we already know. To make things even worse, he encourages people who may know something about the event to come forward and speak with the administration, and says that your identity will be protected if you do. Brendan already has his hand up. He might as well be holding a torch in one hand and a pitchfork in the other. The whole rest of the school day is like that. By lunchtime, the entire 7th grade class is obsessed with the idea that Silas was the shooter. Even the girls at the lunch table are talking about it. And they're nothing like Brendan Farley and Matt Hubbard, who always act like they know what's going on. They tuck their heads and I don't get involved. Like, When those public hearings about guns happened last year, their families were nowhere to be seen, even though they were the ones that probably should have been right in the middle of it, since their families hunt and they aren't terrified of guns like some of the other kids. But the first period after lunch, nobody even has to be convinced anymore. They've all moved on to talking about when he was going to get called down to the principal's office or making plans for how they'll take him down if he tries to go all Call of Duty on them. I heard that a couple of girls started crying and refused to be in the same room as Silas during English class. The only part of the day that's about something different is when Miss Rochambeau pulls me aside after social studies. I want to make sure you're still planning to go to tomorrow's debate club, she says. I've been going for the past week, haven't I? She keeps on talking, and this time I want you to come ready to speak up. I think your viewpoint is going to be particularly valuable. I swallow. Speaking up is a different story. The next day, most of the debate club kids are already in their seats when I ease myself into the chair next to Lydia, who's back to drawing cats. Matt is leaning over another table, but when Miss Rochambeau calls everyone to attention, he quickly takes his seat. As you know, we ran out of time on Monday, and we weren't able to vote on a topic, she says. I decided to choose it myself, but I think you'll agree we don't have any other options. She turns to write on the board. Resolved. The right to own a gun is part of what it means to be an American. No one says anything at first. Not even the 8th grade boy who has 50 different ideas for topics 2 days ago. Lydia has stopped drawing cats. I can sure argue against that, but we'll have to argue for that too. Miss Rochambeau crosses her arms. That is the point. No one says much as Miss Rochambeau points to a list of websites on the board. These will have relevant statistics and ideas for talking points to help you get started. You'll be working in your table groups to prepare, and then tomorrow I'll be selecting one person from each table to take part in our mock debate. There are 3 laptops at our table already, and Matt pulls one of them over towards them. I'll check out the Center for Disease Control first. You guys should start with the others, so we can share notes. I'm still frozen in place in Miss Rochambeau's words. She shouldn't choose me to be in the mock debate. Would she? I sneak a peek at her, looking over to one of the 8th grade boys' notebooks and pointing out a few gaps in the logic here. She totally would. I look around, starting to panic. Lydia has pushed a laptop over to me and opened it, but I feel my octopus skin turning all agitated and red. I quickly type in the web address for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms that's listed on the board. Oh my gosh, Matt says, staring at the screen. Look how many people. How many more people die because of guns in the U.S. compared to the rest of the world? It's like we're living in a war zone. I try to stay in control of my breathing. I peer over at his screen. There's a bunch of bar graphs, but I don't want to take the time to figure out what each bar means because I just want to say, oh yeah, you're so right. And I do. Matt nods and starts writing things in his notebook. I found my way to the firearms frequently asked question parts of the site, but it's 10 pages long. It's super duper detailed about stuff I've never heard of and doesn't have any cool graphs like Matt found. But Matt is copying stuff down in his notebook like a madman, so I pick a FAQ, like FAQ, at random and just start copying its answer down. At least I'll have something. I do my best to ignore the fact that my leg is starting to get all jittery. I'm halfway through writing out the question. Is there a way for a prohibited person to restore his or her right to receive or possess firearms or ammunition? When Lydia interrupts. I mean, this whole thing is ridiculous, she explodes. Look at the pictures on these kids who've been killed. If we'd been in the parking lot at the wrong time, we could have been pictures on this website. It could have been our parents talking about how we were always being kind to other people and work hard and all that. I can't believe we're going to have to argue both sides of this. No one should have guns. Is she serious? What about the nice girls at the lunch table whose families hunt? Yeah, Matt says, copying one of the bar graphs into his notebook. It's like arguing both sides of a resolution about how puppies should or shouldn't be put to death. One side is right and the other is evil. I sit on my hands because it started to shake too. Lydia rubs her forehead. I just don't get why when it comes to guns, our country is like, oh yeah, take that thing that's used to kill people and do whatever you want with it. Well, except for the laws against murder and stuff, I blurt out. Lydia doesn't take her eyes off her laptop screen. Come on. If people don't have guns in the first place, we'd be way better off. I loved going hunting. Would Silas be better off if his family didn't have guns? He wouldn't be in the mess, but then he wouldn't get to go bobcat hunting with his dad either. And if someone is going to be miserable every school day, they shouldn't have to lose the one thing that makes them happy. Lydia. She probably wants me to keep my mouth shut. But isn't that the whole point of debate club? To argue? Miss Rochambeau even told me to speak up, right? I touched my shoulder to be close to my octopus tattoo and imagined my tentacles reaching out to cover Lydia's notebook and suck up some of its confidence. I take a deep breath. Except most people with guns aren't using them to kill people, I say. Don't you think it's a little drastic to... Lydia snaps at me. Are you for real? Drastic? Don't you think it's a little drastic for people to die because of guns? I feel my mouth drop open. But before I have time to think of anything to say in response, anything about responsible gun owners or about how the deer population would be through the roof if it wasn't for hunters, Lydia's eyes fall on my camo jacket that's lying next to my chair. Her lips purse and her face goes stiff. Oh, I get it, she says slowly. You're one of them. One of them? One of who? Then suddenly, those words, your viewpoint is going to be particularly valuable, take on a whole new meaning. I'm supposed to be the evil one. And maybe I am. Maybe Silas is too. Maybe he really did shoot at someone in the parking lot, and I'm the one who told him he better keep hunting. I look at Matt, but he isn't paying any attention. Instead, he's busy copying something down from the computer. 7 kids killed by gun in this country every single day. He's muttering. I might be able to find some bizarre way to argue for this resolution if I have to, but he stares at what he's just written. Anyone who really agrees with it either is as dumb as a rock or a straight up monster. Right. I kick my camo jacket further under my chair. So, dumb rock or monster? It's good to know I have options. Okay, guys, I'm stopping at chapter 17. Hang on, I just started a video on my laptop and I need to tell you something. Okay, so today was like heavy. It's long. It's the longest day that we'll have. The lockdown was definitely real. There was legit shooting in the parking lot. I say there was a shooting of a gun. Nobody actually got hurt. We haven't found that out yet, but nobody, like a bullet never hit anybody. But that's something, I mean, we can all totally relate to that. Because we had a lockdown in our school. I am struggling today, guys. 2 years ago. And it was rough, but we all made it through. And it's something that we practice all the time. So I thought that you guys could be mature enough to read about it. On top of that, now they're talking about gun control. And I know Livingston County is a very big, small town. I live in a super, super, super tiny, it's literally called a village town. And hunting is super prevalent. I live in the Shawnee National Forest. I mean, we have certain times of the year we can't ride because hunters are out. I have very strong viewpoints on guns, and that's something I probably wouldn't have shared with you in the classroom. And we wouldn't have debated this, but I feel like you guys can be mature enough to take whichever side. If you want to talk about it together, you can. But yeah, so what we're going to see where this goes, but that is definitely their debate topic. And we're going to see Zoe's viewpoint, where right now she's being told that she's either stupid or a monster. We're going to see where Silas plays in all of this. And we will eventually figure out who shot the gun in the parking lot, why that climax is coming. I miss you guys. Have a good spring break.